In this episode, we're going to discuss things that you can do to get onto the property ladder quicker. Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to get it right.
I'm Megan and that was Veronica. We're both buyers agents and probably old enough to be your mums. But that's a good thing because between us, we've got over 40 years experience and we are going to share with you bucket loads of stories about avoidable mistakes. Together, we're going to make sure that you get unbiased and real information that you can rely on so you can get where you want to be without missing a step.
Now, we've got loads of great tips for you in this episode, and if you'd like more useful tools, head over to the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. There you'll find free checklists that you can download, a free mini course on how to price a property, and our Where to Buy workshop for only $39. Priceless stuff, really.
Bargain. But before we get into the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field of expertise. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change. So check with the relevant government authority or your advisors to get the most up-to-date information.
Now, we've got a new workshop that we're bringing to you. It's the Stepping Stone Strategy Workshop. We're running this online live, on Saturday, 19th of June from 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you get to do the workshop, but also ask us loads of questions.
Looking forward to it. I'm quite excited about this one actually because we ran a poll and we asked people, what do you want from us next? What part of our brain do you want to pick? And it was rentvesting versus stepping stone strategy, and more than double the amount of people wanted the stepping stone strategy. So if you want to make sure that your first property does the heavy lifting to make sure that your dream home will be achievable in the future, then the Stepping Stone Strategy Workshop is the place to come to get the foundation steps right so that you get that first purchase on the ladder right and then can step towards the dream home.
Now, to find out more, look at homebuyeracademy.com.au/SSW. It's that simple, but we will put the link in the show notes. These live workshops, we only do them a few times a year and they're fantastic, so please join us.
When prices are rising, experiencing FOMO is completely normal and the pressure is on to buy now so you avoid paying more next week or next month, or worst case, being priced out of the market entirely. Today, we're talking about what you can do to be able to buy your first home sooner.
Dear, we just interviewed a case study episode, which is going to be released before this. So this is episode 20 and that was episode 18. So that was such a good example of a couple that bought quickly, but their entire process actually took years. But when they finally were ready, they took 4 days.
From the day they got their pre-approval to the day they put the contract on the property was 4 days because they had everything lined up and done and prepared in advance, and they were able to do it.
Absolutely. So
it's a proud moment.
It is a proud moment. And when we talk about buying quickly, we're not talking about taking shortcuts.
No.
But what we are doing is saying there are times in the market where you do need to be prepared to move very, very fast or buy sooner than you really would rather buy. You might want to save more money. But when prices are rising so fast that they're rising faster than you can save, there are times when you need to actually say, you know what, that's it. I've got to pull up something I need to buy and I need to buy now. So what we want to talk about today are ways in which you can do that. And let's hit the first way, and that is hitting the bank of mum and dad. Because we all know that money is the biggest problem.
Well, and that's, every single first home buyer that we talk to, Veronica, every single first home buyer that does the course, the feedback that we get is their biggest challenge is how to save the deposit, and the purchasing costs. Because we've got to remember, it's not just the 5% or the 10% or the 20% that you've got to save. You've also got to save the purchasing costs because you need to have that money ready to go when you buy, it's not going to come out of the loan. It's not going to be on the bank's not going to give it to you in addition to the 80% that they're going to give you.
Yeah.
And some people can access different forms of money from their parents, whether that be a gift if their parents are in a position to gift money to them, or if it's not able to be a gift, maybe a loan, maybe borrowing some additional funds from mum and dad can help you build that deposit quicker than you could do on your own. Now, really, really, really important here is to get this, I was reading a post on Facebook the other day of somebody who had done this with their parents, but they hadn't put anything in writing and it all went pear-shaped. And that's, one of our biggest tips, isn't it, for managing risk, if you do anything with anybody else, is to make sure you put it in writing. Is it a loan? When's it going to be paid off? And what is the interest rate going to be? And how long have you got? And, these are really, really important conversations to have and actually put in writing so that everybody knows what is going to happen if things don't go as planned.
Oh, that is so true. I think I read the same post, and it's interesting. We've been stalking Facebook groups of where there's a lot of first home buyers in there because we want to understand what questions, what challenges, what hurdles, apart from what a lot of our students have been telling us, who else is out there providing support to these people. And unfortunately, the information and the responses they get in a lot of these Facebook groups is a bit scary, actually, because a lot of the people responding are actually other people who don't know anything.
Yes, they don't know what they don't know.
No, and they're not experts.
That's the scary bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mortified at some of the answers these people get when they post that stuff, but I did see that same post. I was horrified for them. And, yeah, you're right, because the thing is that you don't know what can go wrong, and there are a good lawyer actually can help you here, and it's worth spending a few $100s or a few thousand even to not find yourself in the situation where you've taken money from your parents but these things haven't been worked out. What are the exit strategies? What if you break up with your partner?
What if mum or dad get into a financially difficult situation and they need the money back quicker?
What if your brother or sister fights with you because of it?
Yeah, exactly. The old favourite discussion is bound to come out if you've got siblings. The other thing you can do, and this is an important one as well, is they can be a guarantor for the loan. If they've got really, really good equity in their own property but aren't don't have high levels of disposable cash, then you can actually access the equity in their property. Now, it does mean some cross lending, cross collateralization. Thank you. So their property does kind of get tied up with your property. Lots and lots of risks to understand and conversations to have and things to put in writing. But that's actually how I got into my first property. Was my parents very, very kindly allowed my brother and I to access some equity in their property. And that was how we were able to get into our first property. Now, there were a lot of agreements put in place around that. It was well before I knew anything about property, made heaps of mistakes, but, it didn't end badly because we all knew what was going to happen if, one of us needed to sell or whatever the case may be. It is a way if there's not a lot of cash sitting around.
Yeah, I was about to say, we've actually got a blog on that, and I'll put the link in the show notes so you can read. That was actually put together by a mortgage broker some time ago that about the parental guarantee and the requirements around that, because you do have to get legal advice actually if you use a parental guarantee. It's part of the requirements. And it's a very good idea. So regardless of whether it's a requirement or not, we absolutely encourage you to do that. And so yes, you can buy quicker if you access the bank of mum and dad, but it's not without making sure that you check all these things out. And the reality is you're still got to pay back the money if it's a gift or if you're using the guarantee. If it's a loan or using the guarantee. If it's a gift, make sure that you don't have to pay it back, because I think some people take a gift and they think it's a gift. It's actually not a gift. So, be very clear.
And it's usually not a gift that keeps giving. So
definitely not. So you don't want to
be able to afford to pay the mortgage that you have on the property plus any repayments that you have to make to mum and dad. You should treat them as seriously as you would the bank.
And that's the thing. If you can buy quicker, in order to buy quicker, so what we're saying here is in order to buy quicker, if you have not saved up enough a deposit on your own and you have access to further cash through your parents, then, that can be a great way to buy quicker, but you do have to realize that at some point, generally, you're going to have to pay that money back. And also, if you are given a gift, then you still have to demonstrate you got 5% of savings or genuine savings. The bank refers to them as. So you still got to actually save some of your own money. There's a period of time involved in that. So that's one way to speed things up. Another way to speed things up is don't change jobs just now.
Yes. If you're getting close to getting serious about purchasing, changing jobs can put you in a position where you have to wait for a period of time before the bank will actually lend money to you, particularly if you're on a probationary period.
So talk to your broker about that. Now, I was talking to a broker the other day who was saying that, yes, if you change industries, that's the banks don't like that. If there's a gap, or if you resign from your job without having another one to go to, there's an issue with that. And certainly, sometimes some lenders, depending on what your career trajectory is and your new movies, might view it favorably, and other times it will set you back 3 or 6 months after that probationary period. So that's something to be very well aware of. I can't believe the amount of people that have spent years saving and then they're nearly ready and they go and jump ship and get another job.
Get a different job. Even if it's a higher paying job, it might be a good career decision, but just be aware of the impact on your ability to borrow.
And if that slows you down in a rising market, that's just a consideration that you need to be really aware of. Absolutely.
Yep. And maybe get the house and the home loan first and then change jobs.
Yes. Now, another thing.
Remembering this is not personal advice.
Definitely not personal advice.
This is just options.
Beware that if you want to buy quicker, then you probably need to think twice about changing jobs right now. Now, paying LMI, lender's mortgage insurance, we've talked about this before, but this is a way that you can speed up your entry into the property market, and that is that you pay lender's mortgage insurance. Now, once again, we're not advising you here. We're just letting you know that there are options. And this is why it's really important to have a good mortgage broker and talk to your broker around what this means. I know a lot of brokers say that there's like this magic percentage of 88%. Have you heard that one, Megan?
Sure have. And I've actually run the numbers myself because I was curious. So you can get on this. There's 2 lenders mortgage insurance providers in Australia, and they do have websites. You can jump onto their website and do an estimate, get an estimate for what they're going to charge in lenders mortgage insurance. Now, keeping in mind that you as the borrower do not have any influence over which lender's mortgage insurer your bank uses. It is the bank who decides that, not you. So don't do a calculation and think that's it, that's right, because surprise, surprise, it might not be. But the 88% rule, or if you have 12% deposit, is
plus
almost
costs.
Plus costs, yep. So just from a LMI perspective, 88% is about the number where it kind of almost can make more sense to use LMI than to continue saving if it's going to take you a month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months to save as much as it would cost you in LMI. So it is a magic number, and if you do the exercise on one of the sites, what if I've only got 5%? What if I've got 10%? What if I've got 15%? What if I've got 20%, which is no LMI at 20%? But if you throw in 88 there and actually look at a table of that, and we talk about this in the course, in your first home buyer guide, the cost benefit is actually in favour of doing that if we're in a rising market, and it's going to cost you more and more to save more.
And as long as you can afford the repayments, of course. So
absolutely.
So the thing with this and what we're talking about are ways to get on the market quicker. So if you're thinking I have to have 20% plus costs, but the reality is you cost it out and think, actually, I could, I've got 12% plus costs and I can afford the mortgage, then that's one way to get on the market quicker, is to pay Lender's mortgage insurance.
Conversations with mortgage brokers. You don't have to be, we talk about building a team right at the start of the course. So it's a first module. And the reason that it's there is because you want to gather your knowledge before you actually apply for a loan. So having a conversation with a good mortgage broker who understands mortgage strategy and different lending practices and will sit and listen to your questions and answer them, that's really important. Having those conversations really early in the piece helps you to understand what your options are. And then as you're moving through the process and step by step, taking yourself through the journey of buying your first home, you're armed with a lot more information, a lot more knowledge, and can make much better decisions about what's going to be right for you. Whereas if you just wait until you think you've got enough deposit to have a conversation with a mortgage broker, you may have missed some opportunities and missed out on actually moving forward more quickly if you'd known more than you know when you don't know what you don't know.
What you don't know. What you don't know. So these are all really important things. The other thing that you can look at doing to buy quicker is the federal government's deposit guarantee scheme. They love those long-winded names, don't they?
Oh, don't they what? And then it becomes an acronym and no one can remember what the acronym
FGDG, I can't even say it, if that's what they say. So, okay, every year there's 10,000 new spots. There's 10,000 new spots coming up in only less than 2 months, actually, on July 1. So, and that means that 10,000 lucky Australians who fulfill the criteria, because there's some income caps.
There's quite a bit of criteria
and price caps and whatever. Particularly works in regional areas more than capital cities, in terms of just if you sit down and sort of work out, well, can I buy a quality property? The pressure in capital cities is the prices are too high for most people to be able to buy a decent property under the cap. So in regional areas in particular, if you can secure one of those places, then, and you've got the income to support a bigger mortgage and you're not buying a crap asset, basically, that's a great way to get into the market quicker. And so bearing in mind there's only 10,000 spots a year, they all become available on July 1, then try to get one of them.
Yeah, I guess we've got to be a little bit, put a little bit of caution around that one. Once you have a spot, you have only got 90 days to actually purchase a property. So there are only a number of financial institutions who are allocated a certain number of spots. So very much a conversation to have with a mortgage broker around this one, because timing is imperative. If you're not ready in your journey to purchase within 3 months, then you'll lose your spot.
You'll miss it.
Yep.
So you really, I guess, should have your 5% at least saved, plus costs. Don't forget your costs, and be able to hit the ground running. So use this time to prepare yourself.
Yep. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time to actually get yourself all your ducks in a line, ready to go. The challenge, of course, and I believe that they might have been a little bit flexible on that 90 days because of COVID. I think that there were some extensions given because people physically couldn't go out and buy property. So I do believe that there was some flexibility given there. I'm not sure what the guidelines and requirements will be with the next tranche that's released in July. Watch that space.
If you think that you're going to be qualifying for that and going to be able to take advantage of that, honestly, you are really, I would highly encourage you to do your First Home Buyer Guide, the course. And do it now. Get yourself clued up. Get
yourself ready.
So you can hit that ground running to maximise those 90 days.
Yep. You mentioned earlier, we spoke to some former students in episode 18, and there were some absolute pieces of gold in there. And one of the things that they talked about was, it took them a couple of years on their own. And Mike sort of pointed out he was floundering around a little bit, not really knowing where everything fit in the process. But if you get the process right and do everything step by step, then the moment that you are ready to move forward, you can get that pre-approval done, get your government deposit guarantee scheme position if that's the pathway that you're going to proceed down, and actually go out there really hard in your search to secure something. It's a tough market at the moment. There's no doubt about that, but things will change. I
think what was so good about that case study, so once again, we encourage you to go back episode 18 and listen to that. They knew exactly that it was the right property, and they had been looking at different types of properties in different areas for some time and doing all that legwork and that research. And like, I still can't believe when they told me 4 days. Like, I mean, it's a bit of a spoiler alert.
Pre-approval.
Yeah.
Pre-approval to purchase.
I know. Amazing. But that wasn't about them panicking and FOMO and being crazy. They were very deliberate and very, very educated and eyes wide open about the whole process. That was just exciting to hear that story. It really was, because this is what we're not saying. How to get on the market quicker isn't to panic and go down FOMO path and freak out and think, oh my God, I've got to get in or I'm going to miss out. And that very fast talking that is even faster than I normally talk in your head, then, then that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about being calculated, doing it purposefully, not out of fear. It's smart, not fearful.
Yeah. And I guess what I'd add to that too, Veronica, is don't sit back and hope that prices are going to drop.
Oh, no.
That old nugget. I'm just going to wait until the market settles down. The second biggest question we get is, is now a good time to buy? So first it's, how do I save my deposit quicker?
Oh, yeah.
Where do I buy? And
what's the best time to buy?
A good time to buy. And we always say when you are financially able to, that is the right time to buy. But you need to arm yourself with the right information and be ready so that you know when it's the right property and what to pay for it and what the pros and cons are, and you're going into it with your eyes wide open. So don't sit back. I had a student in a mentoring session the other day say to me, look, Megan, I just think I need to take a break for 6 months and let things settle down. And I said, well, I'm not seeing any kind of change in behaviour that tells me that that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
And this is the thing, that there will become a point where the market sort of peaks and prices will come off the boil for a bit. But it is unusual. It's very rare areas where they come off the boil to where they were at the beginning of the boom. They'll come off the peak, but they don't come all the way down. And we never know where the peak is going to be. And it might be tomorrow, but it also might be in 2 years. And if it's tomorrow, you'll dine out on this and you'll say, yes, I was right to wait. And if it's in 2 years' time, you may never buy a home. Yeah. And, I would rather buy a home and make sure I make a really good decision and really wise decision, really clear decision, not buy a piece of crap, all that sort of stuff. And then know you got a good asset, know you bought the right property. And even if you bought at the peak, it's okay, because it'll be a little bit of time where it goes down a bit and then ultimately it will take off again. Because that's what happens. That's in good areas, good property, that's what happens. So one of the things that the temptation, as Megan just said, is to sit on your hands and do nothing and wait. That's not going to get you on the market quicker. So don't wait.
And it could end up costing you quite a lot of money.
So waiting for the perfect home, if you can't outsave the market, and that is where you've got to save more money because you want a better home. There are times when you think, you know what? I need to actually buy now, and I need to accept that I'm going to buy a smaller home as my first property or an apartment, and be careful, not too small. We're not saying too small. We're not saying
right compromises. Very, very, very important, and it's something that we really, really go into quite deeply, and it's making sure they're the right compromises and not short-term thinking. Because the last thing, you talk about that first place that you bought that was too small. You weren't thinking far enough ahead at the time, and you didn't know what you didn't know at the time. But in hindsight, and one of the things that we love to do is make sure that people don't make the mistakes that we've seen and made ourselves in the past, is to think, oh, well, I can't quite afford what I want, so I'll just get this sort of stepping stone property. But if you're not going to be in it for 5 years at least own that property for 5 years. If you're going to outgrow it within that time frame, then you may well do more than your deposit if you have to turn it over quickly.
Yeah. Now, the stepping stone strategy you mentioned there is a very valid strategy, and we've got a workshop planned for that. So The thing is, though, there's certain things you've got to look for if you're doing the stepping stone strategy. And you really do need to be looking at least medium term when you're buying a smaller home to get into the market. So certainly, as Megan was talking about there, my first property was only 36 square metres. And of course, I outgrew it.
You wouldn't be able to borrow on that now, would you?
No, you wouldn't. Just shows my age, really.
Lend on?
But it was also, I actually borrowed 95%, believe it or not. But I don't want to rub salt in the wound here. The thing is with that, I could have afforded more. If I had a plan, or if I bothered to actually do our where to buy workshop.
So you needed our workshop back
25 years ago. Yeah. When I bought my first property. So, and I just thought, I've got to get something. That is not the answer.
And that's a big risk. Big risk is that anything will go up in value. It won't.
Exactly. And I was lucky.
Such a fallacy. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very lucky. These days, people are not so lucky if they do what I did back then. But there are ways that you can look at what your options are with a smaller budget. Without waiting out the time to save up for what you thought you were going to buy, the bigger home. If there's options for a smaller home, now's the time to think about that. Now's the time to look into that. And I highly encourage you to do the Where to Buy workshop, because for $39, you can actually go through a process that will help you really fully have clarity around what you can get for your money. And so these medium-term options might mean that you live in it for a period of time and then you convert it into an investment. You might renovate it. You might sell and upgrade. There's a number of different things you can do if you buy the smaller property now, but you do need to look at it and also fully consider what those options are after the medium term.
Next life phase is. If you've got kids on the way, then, or you're married, planning children, the one-bedroom apartment isn't going to be upgradable, but maybe a little two-bedroom cottage with the ability to renovate and extend, that may be the way to get in.
Exactly. Or the two-bedroom apartment that, might have a courtyard that might get you one child, and then it might work as an investment. So there's ways to look at it. You need to, once again, you've got to get your advisors lined up, as we talk about in the course. Step one in the PACE system is get your support crew lined up. Yeah, these are things that you definitely need advice on. But, don't wait for the perfect home if you can get in smaller and buy a good medium-term option for within your budget.
Yep.
Next option to get in quicker.
Co-ownership. This can work really well. But just like the bank of mum and dad, there's a lot to think about. There are lots and lots of pros, there's lots and lots of cons, there are lots of risks. Co-ownership is where you pool your money with another buyer who isn't your partner or related, and you enter into an agreement with them around pooling your money, purchasing a property, sharing costs and so forth, and that gets you both into the market a lot quicker and possibly into a better quality, or hopefully better quality property in a different price range than you could achieve if you did it on your own. Co-ownership, I've seen it work really well where people have had good advice prior to entering into it, who are pragmatic about the way in which that they're going to interact with their co-owner, because often in co-ownership you're living in the property as well, so you want to make sure that you can function well as a household. But there are so many things to consider. What if one person falls in love and they want that person to move into the house, or what if a person gets a promotion and wants to move interstate, or what if someone loses their job, and how will repayments be made if there's only one income coming into the household? What if one person wants to sell and the other one doesn't, but they can't buy them out? So there's so many different scenarios that you need to go through and get agreement in, the what if scenarios. If you can do that and get it in writing, then really you a good advisor will actually tease out all of those different scenarios. So no matter what happens, how it's going to be handled, and it can help to reduce any friction if an unexpected event comes up.
It's like a prenup. Yeah. It's so much easier to agree on
business agreement.
Who's going to get the dog if you break up. It's so much easier to agree on that before you break up
When you're not emotional.
Yeah. So that's why, being stepped up. I think we should do a workshop on co-ownership. I got, as we work through
Write it down, Veronica.
Of all the workshops that we can do, let us know. Send us an email if you'd like us to do a workshop on co-ownership and point you in the direction of good agreement. Now, but it is definitely a valid way to get on the property market quicker, particularly if you're not already loved up, coupled up. Although I've got a client, there's a couple, and then there's the sister of one of the couple, and they're buying in together. So, they've got an agreement and a plan and exit strategies and all that sort of thing. And you just got to make sure that everyone gets equal say in what it is that they're buying as well, because you certainly don't want it to be somebody's a bit more stronger, a bit more forceful in their personality. Everyone's got to have really equal input into the ultimate decision of what property, but that can create problems too, and definitely may not speed things up. So
yes, there is complexity there, and there's a lot of preparation to do before you even set foot in a property. Legal advice, incredibly important, because you would be buying as
tenants in common.
I think would be joint
we
tenants.
Have this debate every time
we get
confused. I'm pretty certain it's tenants in common, which means that you own a share, and you can sell. The one person can sell a bit of it and all that sort of stuff. So really important, to be honest. Not like with a parental guarantee, it's a requirement that you get legal advice. With co-ownership, it actually isn't a requirement. I mean, you do have to get the contract looked at by a lawyer, the sale contract, but not your own contract. And it'd be very, very advisable that you do go and get some legal advice around that to make sure that you're covered, and you've got full understanding of your obligations as well. And the other thing too, I think, Megan, you've referred to this in previous episodes, around when you go into co-ownership, the bank views you as potentially having the liability for the entire mortgage or the entire balance.
Yep.
But apparently some banks don't. So once again, great conversation to have with your broker. Which banks, which lenders are going to have the best product for you in your situation to give you maximum flexibility for other options that may or may not come up down the track. So yet again, another reason why you get good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Another way to get into the market quicker is to rent vest. And the reason that we say that can possibly speed things up is you've got an income stream potentially coming through the rental income. So the bank is going to look at that from an income perspective, but you've got to keep in mind you're still paying rent somewhere as well. So rent vesting, where you continue to rent yourself, but you buy an investment property as a way to getting your money into the marketplace. There's pros and cons, as with everything, pros and cons with the rent vesting, Veronica, and I think you've bought.
What's another workshop we're working on? Rent vest or owner occupy?
Yeah, and it's a big decision because there are different tax implications and different mortgage structures that are more appropriate for if you're a principal place of residence, it's your home, versus if it's an investment property, and you need different types of advice. So you can't really go and get a generic loan and then decide later, okay, I'm going to live in it or I'm not going to live in it. You actually have to have your strategy sorted and set before you go and have those conversations, or have both the conversations so that you know what the impact will be.
And I think too, sometimes buyers need a sort of a plan B, and that is, look, if I really can't afford to buy the home I need for the long term, the medium to long term in the area that I want to be, and then I do need to look at buying an investment property in order to be into the market. So that's a decision that shouldn't come easily, but it's certainly a way in which you can actually buy with a smaller budget, because you aren't going to be buying with the same for your own personal requirements.
Emotional.
Right?
Yeah. So it's investment property is very analytical. So removing the emotion out of it can help you move forward, as long as you're sticking with the fundamentals and making sure that those fundamentals are right for the market in which you're purchasing.
Exactly. Now, in all these ways in which we're talking about getting into the market quicker, notice how we haven't suggested maxing out on grants.
We haven't even talked about grants, Veronica.
We did talk
Why
about,
is that? Why do we not really talk about grants?
We run the risk of sounding like we're banging on the same old drum.
We are banging on the same drum.
Pretty much every episode. Don't rely on government grants. You know, if you do get a grant because you're able to sit under a threshold and buy a really good quality asset in a good area, then that's great. That's icing on the cake, and that's fantastic. But the problem is when people are actually trying to leapfrog onto the market with very few savings by using grants. And so that's the danger. So where people say, right, I've got 5% and I'm going to get 20 grand here and 10 grand there and whatever. The problem is with that, they force you down a very narrow funnel towards buying property that is easy to buy and probably not going to be a great asset. Yep. And so that's the main reason that we don't encourage you to say, great, do the big money grab from the government and that's the quick way on the market. It is a quick way into a whole world of pain.
Yeah, and the biggest risk then is that you end up with a property that is either not going to give you equity in line with how the market is growing, so it grows at a slower pace, or it doesn't grow, or it goes backwards in value, because most of the grants will point you towards brand new, and brand new properties. Particularly ones in the big estates and subdivisions and big complexes and apartments and so forth, they're going to depreciate for a number of years before they even start to appreciate. So if you're thinking, well, I'll use a grant, I'll get into a property and then I'll use the equity in that property as a stepping stone into my next property, well, your risk is you might actually be sitting on negative equity, not positive equity, for a number of years, and you're stuck then in that property. Yep. So your stepping stone strategy is greatly affected by your decision on the first property. So that's why we don't talk about accessing grants as a way to get into the market quicker or to save you, to have your deposit more quickly, because it's not necessarily going to point you to the right asset.
Yes, I know. It's really terrible. And a lot of people think, oh, you're just being negative. But I have started, you might have noticed, Megan, I've started a little folder of examples of people who have got caught out, because there are so many. And so one day I'm going to put together a whole, we might do it a blog post, or we might even do an episode of all the sad stories that we want all of you who are listening to this podcast to avoid being one of those statistics.
Don't end up in Veronica's folder.
Don't, exactly. That's an ambition in life, isn't it?
You don't want to be one of her case studies.
Do not be a case study. Dear. Now, I think the other don't sit back and wait for prices to drop. Megan, you've already raised that earlier.
Yeah, look, it's just, I'm Brisbane based. When the market cools in Brisbane, prices don't drop, they stagnate. So if you really think that you're going to be able to time the market and have prices drop, then nothing in history tells me that that's going to happen in Brisbane. Sydney and Melbourne have had times where prices have come off, but as you say, they've come off the peak, not off the last trough. Yeah. So you very rarely, in fact, I can't think of a period in time where a decrease in the market went below the previous trough. Can you?
No, I mean, certainly in hot spotting areas where
oh, absolutely,
mining towns, a classic
example. Where the fundamentals aren't there.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're buying, particularly where you're buying a home to live in good areas, good property where there's not oversupply, you don't see that. And so certainly I'll just give you some quick stats, in the last boom in Sydney, and similar thing happened in Melbourne, from 2012, 2017, median house price in Sydney went up 89%. In the sort of 2 years from the mid-2017 to mid-2019, they came off by 15%. So 89 up and then off 15. So anybody who bought sort of in the end of 2016 to mid-2017, yes, they might have been feeling a bit uncomfortable for a period of time. Anyone who bought before then would have got some gains they were still sitting on. Now, when the market turned again, it only took 9 months to go up 12%. Right. And then COVID hit and all sorts of weird stuff happened. But now it's just gone gangbusters again. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is when you've got a boom, and we are beginning of a boom, and no one knows how long it's going to go for. No one knows. No. But, all the signs are pointing that it's going to go for a while. And so, as we mentioned before, when you are ready, when you are financed, when you're ready to buy that property, get into the market and make sure you buy a good asset. Don't just get in buying anything. Do not jump in and just go, I've got to, who cares? Anything will do. That is not our message.
It won't. Anything won't do, and hopefully we've rabbited it on enough that you understand that you've still got to make a really good decision about the property. So look, once you get yourself into that position where you've looked at all of these options, you've talked to relevant experts in their fields about what you're thinking of doing, and you've armed yourself with knowledge, then it's really, being able to buy in this market in particular, but at any point in time, don't set up alerts on the portals and wait for, your dream home to arrive in your inbox, because most likely people like you and I, Veronica, have already gone and seen the property. If it's good, we've bought it for a client, or we've rejected it because it was not good. So you actually have to be really active. You have to really be out there, be active. It's hard to do when you're working full time, but you've got to work out how to do it. And that is to get on the phone to agents. Agents are your source of property, and talking to them and making sure that they understand that you're finance ready, you're pre-approved, you understand, you're asking intelligent questions. These are all really important things to do in a fast-moving market, because you cannot wait for an agent to ring you back. They've got 50 or 60 missed calls, and their ability to get back to each individual buyer is almost, it's almost gone at the moment. They're out there trying to list properties. That's really what the real estate agent's focus is at the moment. So you've got to be the one that is out there talking, be the squeaky wheel, going and inspecting properties, filling yourself with knowledge and information, and then when the right one comes up, you're ready to move on it.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
In this episode, we've covered a very small part of our 10-step online course for first-time buyers. If you would like to learn more about the process and how to buy without making a mistake, then head over to our website, www.homebuyeracademy.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss an episode. And if you like what you've heard today, please give us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be wonderful. It will help others find us as well.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this really useful. And if you have, please share the love with others who you know are in the same boat. We'll be back next week with some more priceless stuff.